Joe the Pro here. Welcome to another edition of Fascinating Five. Today my guest is the legendary, dear old friend of mine, Jorge Badel. How you doing, George?
Good, Joe.
Thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show, my friend. You know, we were just talking just a minute ago. It's been 25 years since we've known each other. A little bit about George. You know, when you sent me your bio, I was really surprised about your junior golf accolades here, your playing accolades. Let me just touch on those real quick just for a second here. You qualified for the 1977, not to date you, PGA Junior, and you're a charter member of the AJGA. That's phenomenal.
That means I'm old, Joe.
You were in the 74 Junior World. You made the cut. You qualified for the 77 Junior World. Getting a little older now, you won the 92 SCPGA 4-ball with Chuck De Silva.
That's correct.
That's a section event. That's great. That's quite the playing accomplishment. You won the 1998 SCPGA Pro Junior with your nephew and now PGA Pro at Virginia, Nick Badel, who's a dear old friend of ours.
That was special.
You've known him, right? We've known him for a long time. That's phenomenal. Tell me a little bit more about your playing days as a junior. I was really surprised to see what a great player you were back in the day.
Well, obviously, junior golf was some wonderful years for me. I'm a product of 3 junior golf programs. The Hartwell Junior Golf Program, which even back in the early 70s was a very robust program. I mean, today it's huge, probably 1,000 plus kids. In those days, it was on Saturdays. It's where I won my first trophy. I'll never, ever forget it. I remember my mom picking me up, and we're driving down Carson in her Buick Skylark and bench seating, and that trophy was on the seat between my mom and I. It still makes me cry. I remember it so well. It was a little bitty thing. I wish I still had it. I was also a member of the Bellflower Junior Club. That was a little more of a players club, and we had some really, really good players there. David Gaines, who at the time may have been the top junior in the country, one of the top juniors in the world. Brian Carson, several other really good players. Pearl Singh came out of there. Really, really good golf course. A difficult par 3 course. Unfortunately, it no longer exists. And I was also very active in the Southern California Junior Golf Association. Very robust summer tour. We had about 90 events. I remember Virginia Country Club is not far from here. I remember we'd get our packets in the mail, and we would drive that entry form over to make sure that we got into that event. So it was a very, very enjoyable junior career.
Yeah, and I know that junior golf has always been near and dear to your heart. So it was really a pleasant surprise to see. You know, I've known you for 25 years, but I didn't know you when you were a junior. So it was nice to see you. You've kept that fire burning for junior golf, and we'll touch on that a little bit more with the Don Knabe Center. Currently, you're the LA County Parks and Rec Senior Golf Director in charge of 20 golf properties in LA County. So George is the man in LA County golf. Quickly segueing to our first question, how did you get into golf?
So we're here today at Lakewood Country Club. I selected this site, and thank you for agreeing to meet here. 1966, my parents bought a home across the street from the 13th tee here at Lakewood Country Club. And across the street from their home was an empty field. Well, as a young man, there was no internet, there were no phones, there were no video games in those days, so you had to play outside. So as a young man, I would walk across the street through the empty field. I would hop the fence and onto this golf course. I began diving the lakes for golf balls there for many, many years. I had the territorial rights to the 12th hole, which was a very good hole. It's a tough par 3 with a lot of water, as well as it caught a lot of balls off from the tee on number 13. So as a young man, that's where I started my entrepreneurial career. I borrowed the ball washer from the 13th tee, dragged it over to the house at night, cleaned balls, graded them, put them in egg cartons, sprayed them with lacquer, and started selling golf balls on the golf course. I expanded that business to lemonade and Springfield soda. So I had quite a racket going on. And I'll never forget, God bless my mother, she fronted me the money. It was probably $3 for some powdered lemonade and Springfield sodas, and she made me give her those $3 back. Not that she needed it, but it was part of my education process. Never forget it. She says, there's a cost of doing business. Well, while I'm sitting there making a boatload of money selling grade A, grade B, and grade C golf balls and lemonade, I'm watching humans launch these projectiles into the air, long distances, and they're curving to the right and they're curving to the left. I was hearing words as a young man I probably shouldn't have heard, but I found it fascinating that man could do this. And of course, by man, I mean all. So I took up an interest in the game, and my first set of clubs was a set of Joanne Prentice aluminum irons, big 5 sporting goods, probably cost $20. Remember them well. And some woods, laminated woods from the Treasury Department Store, and that's how it all started. I started playing 13 through 17 here at Lakewood Golf Country Club, which goes in a loop. Played those holes hundreds, if not thousands of times.
Amazing. Fascinating, man. Awesome. That is fascinating. That's why we call it the Fascinating Five. In 1985, you qualified for the USGA Pub Links, which is a huge accomplishment. You want to tell me about that?
So, yes, in 1985, so to play in the USGA Pub Links, of course, you have to qualify. And I made a decision to, I didn't want to, of course, Southern California is loaded with really good players, so I didn't want to qualify here in Southern California because I knew all these really good players would be in the field and they would be on my mind. So I made a decision to go to Las Vegas, to Southern Nevada to qualify. Now, mind you, there are a ton of good players in coming out of Vegas. So,
right.
But my thinking was I won't know any of them, therefore I won't worry about them and I can focus on golf. So it was a July day, 108 degrees, 36 holes. I walked, carried my bag. You had to walk. Carried my bag, shot 141, qualified, grabbed the second spot. I lapped the next guy who had shot 144, but a 15-year-old phenom lapped me. He shot 136. He was a kid by the name of Robert Gammons. Later went on, 5 years later, went on to win on the PGA Tour at the age of 20, including the famous shot at Bay Hill at Mr. Palmer's event where he knocked in a 5-iron to beat Norman. So Robert and I went to, it was conducted at Waialua, Kauai, and in the practice rounds, it was a USGA event. The setup was very, very tough, and I told myself, I said, George, you don't have to be medalists here, you just need to get in the field. So I hit fairways and greens for 2 days, fairways and greens, fairway green 2, but qualified for match play. Then well, I'll leave it at that. But to go from 5,000 down to 64 was a great thrill.
Awesome, man. That is awesome.
Thank you, John.
Dude. Yeah, I didn't. Before I saw this, I didn't know you had quite the playing career, amigo.
I was a journeyman, but
journeyman. Yeah, I'm a field filler, but we dig it, right?
Marker.
I saw in your bio that you started working with Len Kinnett back in 1984. You want to touch on an experience with the legend himself?
Sure. So I approached Mr. Kinnett in November of '84. I didn't want to go out and work in the real world, so I walked over here to the pro shop and I asked Mr. Kinnett if he had any part-time work. I was selling myself. I said, Mr. Kinnett, employees get sick, they go on vacation. I had to tell him why he needed part-time help. I said, people get sick, they go on vacation, do you need any part-time assistant? He goes, as a matter of fact, I do. So I think the next weekend I was working the pro shop. We were scooping balls. It was old school. There was no ball dispensers in those days. And Len was, the greatest golf retailer in Southern California. He had huge golf shops. In the 80s and 90s, mind you, we were doing over $1 million a year in merchandise sales out of these pro shops in the 80s and 90s. They were huge. So anyways, that was here at Lakewood. I was part-time, and in May of '85, he asked me if I would consider an assistant position at Los Verdes up in Rancho Palos Verdes. I said, yes, sir, where do I sign? So I went up there, I started teaching, I was enjoying it, and I said to myself, wow, I can make a living doing this, but I think to take it to the next step, you need to further educate yourself. So that's when I joined the apprentice program in the PGA. As for Mr. Canet, he's a wonderful, wonderful golf professional. He made us touch all the bases: teaching, merchandise, tournament administration, a little bit of everything. We had to pull out carts in the morning, so he wanted to make sure that we understood what the business was all about. But then again, fast forwarding, I joined the PGA and started going through all my education and trying to network and expose myself to as many different areas as the game as possible, and I'm very glad that I did.
And he kind of planted that seed as far as touching, all aspects of the golf industry. I know, just in our travels, how many people Len has touched in the golf industry, including yourself. I mean, you're all gems. Len's guys are gems, and you are definitely quite the rule to that. Good on that.
Thank you, Len.
Yeah, right. In 1999, you became the GM at Cascades. You want to tell me about that experience?
Yeah, so, it's an interesting story how I landed that position. I was here at Lakewood, and at that time there was a golf club in the San Fernando Valley in Sylmar. It was under construction. It was called the Cascades Golf Club. Well, ownership, they had a consultant overseeing the project. That consultant knew me, and that consultant came to me and he said, "George, we'd like to offer you the general manager head professional position at the Cascades Golf Club. It's a club that's being built in the valley." And I said, "Okay, well, I'll take a look. Where do I, how do I apply? When will interviews be?" He says, "There's no application. There's no interview. We're selecting you." I said, "Well, okay, time out. Let me go look at the facility." So I drove up there, and the course was under construction. It was the hardest golf course I had ever seen in still to this day. It was the hardest course I'd ever seen. And I said, this facility is not going to make it off of golf. I'm saying this to myself. It was just too hard. I think a lot of people were going to play it one and done. So I said to myself, "George, take it. Take this position." I mean, it sounds ludicrous, and I'm still questioning why I did it, but it ended up working out. And the reason I did that is I said, this is going to force you to get out of just people just coming in masses. It's going to force you to learn, the agronomy, the maintenance side, the food and beverage side, marketing, advertising, promotion. You're going to have to run on all 8 cylinders, not just golf, to make this work. And indeed, I was able to learn about all of those areas as general manager and expand in those areas. And we did run on all 8 cylinders. So I'm very, very glad that I made that decision. I got out of my comfort zone. That's not a natural thing to do, but to you, young associates out there and apprentices, I recommend that you get involved and volunteer in areas that you may not be comfortable with or you may not know much about, because you never know where this is going to lead, and you may end up loving, becoming very passionate about something that you didn't know that you'd have passion about. So
that leads us right in. What advice would you give our up and coming professionals in that?
Well, so 2 things. Again, touch all the bases. I mean, merchandise. There's not as much merchandise going on these days with the big box stores and the internet, but merchandise, tournament administration, food and beverage, agronomy. I mean, the PGA offers the opportunities to expand your skill set in these things, but touch all the bases, because you may find a certain niche that becomes very appealing to you, and your golf career may branch off in that way. You may branch off going with a major golf club manufacturer. You may end up with the USGA or at PGA headquarters. So you don't know which way it's going to go. If you touch all the bases, you have a far greater opportunity of becoming a general manager. A general manager is not just one-dimensional these days, of course. It's all-encompassing. Another thing that I would say is understand that when you're working in the pro shop or you're at the golf course and you're visible, you're auditioning each and every day. You don't know who's coming in. You don't know who that person is in front of you. That person may own a company, may be a VP, may be a hiring manager. They may be the adult children of people who own companies. So
might be in charge of the Cascades.
Might be in charge of the Cascades. Exactly. These people work and they have companies and they have opportunities. So we're here to promote the game and to help our fellow professionals. But should it not work out in golf, there's a lot of opportunity walking in your door every day. I assure you of that.
And it's fascinating that you didn't even have to go through an interview process for the Cascades. They liked you. They saw what you brought to the table. Your customer service must have been as good as it always has been with me, man. So, you're the dude, and that's led.
That's Mr. Connect,
right?
Yes.
I mean, and I see the similar. You guys are such awesome human beings, and you always have been. And I'm gonna go down the road of the clinics that we do. The junior blind, you've helped out the Wounded Warriors. You've gone to Pendleton. You've given back ever since I started these way all the way back in '94 with the victims of stroke. You've been in my corner on these clinics, and I appreciate that so much. But it says a lot to me. What a wonderful guy you have always been. But you want to touch on what you guys are doing with the Wounded Warriors in LA County a little bit?
Sure. Well, before I get into that, Joe, because it's tied into that, first of all, should have done this at the beginning. Thank you for this show. And this is just another in the long list of great things that you do for our game. It's neat. On your show, the guests, we know of each other professionally, but we really don't know their background, their stories, their philosophies, their thinking, their methodologies. And it's just been fascinating to really get to know your guests better. I almost feel like I'm friends with them when the show is done. So thank you for that. And also, a shout out to your director, executive producer extraordinaire, Summer Drummond. She doesn't get enough attention. So, this is like being on 60 Minutes. I kid you not. There's lights everywhere. There's cameras everywhere. But Summer, thank you. You're behind the scenes, and this is wonderful. As for the clinics, you've been a great inspiration to me. Joe, it's just beautiful how you reach out to help those who are less fortunate. At the County of Los Angeles, we do have a Wounded Warrior project where we host a clinic, and that is because of you. So you have a tremendously long reach, and the reason for that is many years ago, I volunteered down at Camp Pendleton, and the following year, because of that experience, the County of Los Angeles implemented a Wounded Warrior annual clinic.
Wow.
You get credit for that, Joe. And I will say another thing. I will never forget, the first annual clinic was held here at Lakewood, and at the luncheon we asked the veterans if any of them would like to speak, and I will never forget one of them got up and he said, "Thank you for making us feel normal for a little while. Thank you for making us feel normal for a little while." And these guys were shell-shocked, these guys and gals, and it's very, very touching that because of you, we were able to touch a veteran in that way, Joe. Thank you.
Well, thank you for saying that, but it's all team always, you know that. But I appreciate you saying that, and it's great that you're implemented in LA County. You can reach a lot of vets.
And for those of you who don't know about Joe and his work with the Junior Blind Foundation, one of the neatest stations of that day is he has kids throw golf balls into a pond, into a lake, and it's audio, and a child throws a ball into a lake, kerplunk, and out comes a smile. It's pretty powerful, Joe.
Yeah.
You're quite a guy. You're an incredible man.
Well, thank you for saying that. This is your interview, man. Thank you for saying that.
To you, man.
But it does seem that the golf ball toss and the puppy petting station is the two favorite by the end of the day. That's where you're going to find the kids in the junior blind clinic.
Yeah, I love that.
Oh, phenomenal. Oh, well, good. It's been a lot of years, man.
Yeah.
Been a lot of years. So I know you're super busy running, the 20 properties. Do you get a chance to play it all much anymore?
I play about once a month. I do stretch a lot. I'm coming up on 59. It helps. I hit balls once a week. I'm a 1.7 who plays to about a 4. I'm very, very proud of it. and love the game more every day. I don't get mad. I'll never forget Mr. Marin's, one of his tips years ago. He says, if you pump it into the trees, embrace the challenge. And that's the way I look at the game nowadays. For me, it's just a recreational crossword puzzle. It's just so beautiful. We all know it. Everybody watching this show knows all the beauty and all the great things that this game of golf affords all of us.
Absolutely. It does seem like it's gotten more, the older we get, the funner this game is, the less we give it care about how we play. It's all about the experience with who you're with and all that.
It's getting harder to balance the ball on the tee now. Hey, we'll get through that.
Right. All right, which brings me to our last question. I mean, you mentioned Eddie Merritt's. What is your favorite golf tip?
So, in my teaching, I have always placed a lot of emphasis on the finish position. That's understanding that many things have to be correct to get to that position. But I place a lot of emphasis on the finish position. I have my own way of doing it. I tell my students, don't interrupt the swing to hit the ball. Don't interrupt the swing to hit the ball. Sean Cox, who was on your show, it was absolutely wonderful. Sean said that, this is not my favorite, Mr. Marin's is my favorite tip. I'll get to it in just a second. But Sean said that when he has a beginner student, he has them set the club down behind the ball and push the ball through. I thought that was pretty cool. Sean said he teaches the golf swing from the finish backwards, which leads me to my favorite tip of all time. 2 years ago at the inaugural Teaching and Coaching Summit at Virginia Country Club, Mr. Marin's was the keynote speaker, and he was up there on the stage, and he's prancing back and forth slowly, and he has us all mesmerized. And he stopped, and he just changed the subject, and he goes, now, what I want all of your students to swing from New York to Los Angeles. Don't stop in Chicago. And that's what Sean was talking about. Now, it swing from New York to Los Angeles and don't stop in Chicago. I mean, the beauty and elegance and the simplicity is awesome, but it's a valuable tip.
That's phenomenal.
So that's my favorite tip.
That's phenomenal. Before we go, I do want to talk about because you spearheaded, I know, behind the scenes, the Don Knabe Golf Learning Center. You want to talk about that just a little bit?
Sure. So Don Knabe was a county supervisor. He was termed out in 2016, and Don Knabe was a great friend of golf. And he was a friend of golf because he knew of the qualities that the game provided, especially to youth. So basically on his way out about 3 years before, the city of Norwalk had a golf course, a 9-hole golf course with a little small 6-station driving range, 50 yards. They were going to close that facility because it was a financial burden. So Supervisor Knabe in the county of Los Angeles, we took it over. We closed it and we rebuilt it at a cost of $13 million. It was renamed the Don Knabe Golf Center and Junior Academy. And it is doing very, very well with junior programming. And what we are most proud of is the design of the golf course. When we were done with the practice facilities and the driving range, we only had about 700 yards left, and I viewed that as a blessing. So we have 9 holes that average about 70 yards each. I said, this is a good thing. Now what we did is we made the putting surfaces very large. They average about 3,000 square feet. That 3,000 square feet is for a hole over 150 yards. These holes are only 70 yards. Additionally, we put mounding around all of the greens, and they're very tightly cut. So what we want beginners to taste success. It's critical. We have to stop beating people up. And the greens are very gentle. So you have huge greens and mounting. My heart goes pitter-patter when I go to that facility and I sit on a bench and I watch golfers miss the greens right and left, and the ball is like on a roller coaster, and it goes up and around and it comes down onto the green, and people jump up and down, they high-five, they smile. It's success. It's making people feel good. If we can get beginners to make 3, 4s, and 5s, maybe even a 6, par of 3 is out there. It's reachable. It's realistic. We have a chance of keeping them. As we all know, they're making 8, 9s, and 10s. they're going to go to the mall or play on their phone. I mean, nobody wants to do that. So it's built to help you. It has training wheels.
Oh, nice.
We're not out to beat anyone up because we're not going to capture golfers that way. So we're very, very proud of that facility.
Right.
My staff has done a great job. And the LA County, by the way, has a wonderful, because of Don Kanabe, has a wonderful junior golf program. We offer free junior golf lessons to the community year-round, no cost to participants. That's headed up by Mike McMonagle, who many of you know.
Yeah.
And you know him really well.
We love Mike.
So doing really good things there at the Kanabe Center. Come out and visit.
Yeah. I've said when I interviewed Len, I said, I learned how to work with juniors the week I was helping Mike with that program. He just takes it to a whole new level.
Right.
He really knows how to handle his kids. All right, LA County Parks and Rec Senior Golf Director. I like saying that, George. That's great. Coming from here, Lakewood, with Len, working your way through the system, running GM at Cascades. Next thing you know, you're the LA County Senior Director, Senior Golf Director for LA County Parks and Rec. Huge title, huge job. You do phenomenal work, and I know you do. And you've always been in my corner and helped me with all my stuff that I do. You've always been a great friend to me, and I really appreciate you being on the show, George.
We all appreciate you, Joe. Like Mr. Kinnett, you're a great pro, but you're an even better human being, and we thank you for that, Joe.
Well, coming from you, that means a lot, George. Thank you so much, my friend. Thanks for being on the show. I give you Jorge Badel.